But Ted Walsh, you were at the yard in question at the time. I know you have spoken to the reporters in the papers today, including David Walsh and Paul Kimmage, with one of your horses there. Can you just explain, Ted, first of all, what you were doing at the premises?
Well, I had a horse with a slight injury to a tendon, and I had used John Warwick in the past with success. I rang him to know when he was going to be in Ireland. He said he'd be there on Tuesday. So I drove down Tuesday morning around 11:30, 11:45 when I was down there. And when I got there, I knew there was something wrong because there was a lot of people around, Department of Agriculture and some police and that. I was going there basically to get a horse lasered that had a tendon injury for John to scan him first, and then if he thought suitable to laser him.
Okay,
that's what I was doing there.
Okay, so he's not a registered vet as such, but he is a therapist. So why did you use John Warwick as opposed to maybe somebody else? And also, can you just explain about what laser treatment does for a horse like that?
Well, the reason I used John is because I had success with him 10 or 12 years ago with Seabass, who always got niggly problems with his tendons, and John was recommended to me with the success he had with Snow Fairy and other horses around. You just word him out that he was good at that, and he lasered him, and I got him back on the track twice to run in 2 nationals, intermittently lameness, and came right of it in a quick time. It was good healing. Laser basically brings a supply of blood. It lowers the inflammation which you get when you strain the tendon, and then it brings blood to that affected area, rejuvenates the soft tissue around it, and helps it to heal quickly. Sometimes those things take 3 months, sometimes they take 12. The reason I didn't use a vet is that vets have never recommended laser to me. And all the vets I've had over the years, they do other methods, but they didn't do that. And I had success with laser, and I knew John did it, and that's the reason I went. So
it's a different approach, I guess, to dealing with a medical problem like this. It's a different appraisal of it.
Well, not every medic believes in the alternative methods. And I know myself, over the years, you'd be handed pain relief or anti-inflammatories. They'd cut the stomach out of me. I'd rather the pain than deal with what I have to deal inside. And so I'd take arnica or I'd strap it. And no doctor has ever recommended anything like that to me. But it got far better results for me over the years, and I stood by it.
And Ted, have you ever used John Warwick for anything else other than to say laser treatment for tendon issues like that?
No, tendon is all I ever used them for, tendon issues. That's all I ever used John for, tendon issues. And it would only be maybe every couple of years you'd have something with a slight tendon tear. If it was a serious one, you'd know you weren't going to go anywhere, but a slight one. And if you're trying to get the horse back into action quicker than, say, maybe giving him 12 months, I'd use John. It doesn't always work, but it did work on several horses, in particular Seabass.
I guess the main issue as well over the next coming days is that we're going to find out the substance that were taken away. They are being analysed at the moment, as was the horses as well that were in the yard are all going to be tested as well for whatever is the substance that was taken from Mr. Warwick by the IRGRB and by the relevant authorities as well. Is it a bit of a coincidence, Shane, unfortunate coincidence, or maybe an irony, the fact that on the day that the anti-doping situation in this country and I guess the protocols in place have been highly praised as a standard to follow, that we have an incident like this taking place?
It is quite ironic on the same day that the Oireachtas Agricultural Committee, which this hearing and considerations had been going on since the summertime, concluded that the regulations of the IHRB did not fall below international standards, and then hours later this news breaks. But despite giving us the vote of confidence, essentially, the Oireachtas Committee did make 11 recommendations from the composition of their board to the transparency, suggesting that maybe the IHRB should be reclassified as a semi-state body. But I suppose most pertinent to this conversation is they did suggest or recommend an independent audit of the IHRB and their testing samples. They did suggest that maybe all favourites and the first 5 home in every race be tested. Now, when it comes to, I suppose, the emphasis of this conversation is Mr. Warwick's phone has been seized, so his contacts can be analysed, and his vehicle, which was of course where the remedies were, that has also been seized, so they can analyse the specific drugs. We are very limited in our actual factual knowledge. We don't know what drugs were seized, but what is important is that the drugs have been seized, they can be analysed, and now they can be specifically tested for by the IHRB.
Yeah, and it's important. Mr. Warwick has stated and asserted that these substances, while are permitted in other jurisdictions, might not necessarily be permitted here, but they are not per se doping substances, which is what he asserts. Ted, are you, just in terms of people reading the papers this morning, and they might try and put 2 and 2 together, are you confident that your good name and standing will be upheld, regardless of the outcome of any test results?
Yeah, I mean, the horse I had there, he never left the box until the Turf Club veterinary officer, Lynn Hillier, arrived, which was about an hour afterwards, and she took out the animals that were in my, the one horse that was in my box and the other horse as well, and she tested them, took blood samples from 4 vials of blood and a hair sample, and then she told me I could go home. And I'm fully convinced, I'm fully happy that no matter where you test them, I've stood the test of time for 71 years. I think I'll stand the rest of it as well too.